Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
You never responded to my trailer email I sent you.
Which one?
The one with the two trailers. Watch this one and then this one.
Oh, no. I watched the first one about a dork, and I thought Andy's punking me. And I'm not going to watch the second one right now because I was sitting on the side of the road in my car. And I thought, well, this is not going to be any effective.
The Babadook.
Babadork. That's what I thought it was. Now, where did you find this? Is that a real thing?
It's a trailer. Yes, it's a real...
Like, what is the thing? You said, go in your bathroom and say, Mary Tyler Moore 3 times, and you'll see Che Guevara.
It wasn't Che Guevara who appeared for me. It was Fidel Castro.
It was Castro.
Maybe it was the accent.
The Next Reel is a podcast about movies. That there's Andy Nelson. I'm Pete Wright. And welcome to the show. You can find us at thenextreel.com, where you can read the blog stylings of Steve Sarmento. You can catch up with the Film Board monthly current release special episodes. You can catch up with Andy's and my weekly show here on the classics. You should also make sure you join us on all of the finer social platforms for the conversation. And you should check out Letterboxd for our 2014 watch list. And I think that's it. I think those are the big ones. And so the big thing that I'm interested in is the fantastic update, the weekly update on Andy versus the People. The Instagram Pony Prize Guess the Movie Challenge.
It was a pretty good week, not too bad. 3 guesses it took, or 3 images for Robot Gremlin to get it. And it was the classic The Invisible Man. And 3 images.
Not the Chevy Chase version.
Not memoirs of. No, this was just The Invisible Man. Yeah, so congratulations go out to Robot Gremlin, who's entered into our Pony Prize. Excellent. Which one of these days we will actually draw a name from a great big hat, and somebody's going to win it.
That's right. Do we have any other news and updates for the people?
Just one quick thing. We did have a new comment over on iTunes from Nicholas Orchulo, who says, "A great podcast. You will love it. Short and sweet. Right to the point. I love it."
I love it that it's prescriptive, too. You will love it.
Yeah. I think it's not on here, but I do believe that it is Dr.
Yes. Yeah, I think he is. I'm sure he's a doctor of something.
So it is a prescription.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Get your daily dose.
Let's talk about trailers. My trailer this week, we were fans of About a Boy.
Absolutely fans of About a Boy.
We were big fans. Do you remember that movie?
I definitely do.
We were big fans of that movie. That was a Nick Hornby movie, or based on the Nick Hornby story. And there he's got a new one, A Long Way Down, which is, I'm telling you, looks pretty darn spanky.
It does.
It is. It's first of all, it stars Pierce Brosnan. So come on, right?
So you got James Bond in there.
You got James Bond in there. So it's already a win, even though it wasn't the best era of James Bond. But we also have Aaron Paul, Rosamund Pike, Imogen Poots, Toni Collette, and Sam Neill, along with Tuppence Middleton. How do you go wrong with someone named Tuppence?
I don't know.
I'd never actually heard of Tuppence Middleton.
I knew you could give the old lady at the stairs tuppence to get a bag to feed the birds.
Right.
But I didn't know it was a name.
Yes, tuppence a bag.
Is that like
that was her name?
Someone over here a quarter?
Yes, quarter or just yes.
Isn't that what a tuppence is?
50 cent. 50 cent.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. We have that. See, we have that too.
She's the British 50 cent.
British 50 cent tuppence.
Yeah. She's a little less, though. She's not quite 50.
She's not quite 50 cents.
We do love you, tuppence.
She's quite. She's been in a lot of stuff. She was born in Bristol, England. She's British.
She was just in Danny Boyle's last movie, Trance.
Yes. What did you think of that? Did you like it?
I liked the trailer. I never saw
You
the
never
movie.
saw the movie. All right. Well, let's put that on
It's on my
list.
list.
Yeah.
On my list.
So anyway, A Long Way Down. So this is the movie about 4 people who just by coincidence end up on the same roof of the same skyscraper to throw themselves off in suicide. And it's just a random thing, apparently, judging by the trailer. They all end up there, and it's their story about this sort of reversed suicide pact pact that they all agree not to kill themselves until sometime in the future. If we're not married by 2020, then will you marry me? It's that kind of a thing.
Right.
So, but it looks absolutely charming, and I love the idea of having all these people they come from very different backgrounds. You have the business person, you have the young person, you have the pizza delivery guy, and it looks like just another sort of charming Nick Hornby story. It was written. The adaptation was done by Jack Thorne. Do you know of this Jack Thorne, Andrew?
I was looking at him, and he doesn't look like. I mean, he looks like he's just a writer, producer. He's done stuff that I haven't heard of, but
a lot of TV, a lot of TV, and a lot of stuff that I've also not heard of. But this one looks like his foray into feature films, directed by Pascal Chaumiel.
Yeah, which is, it's interesting because he comes from the group of the Luc Besson, kind of that French team that, I don't know, Luc Besson is kind of like a Hans Zimmer of filmmakers. Like he seems to have like this little group that kind of keeps expanding and making their own projects, because Pascal was his first assistant director on several of his films, like Leung, the Professional, and
Second Unit on Fifth Element.
Yes, and he, I believe, also worked on The Messenger as second unit director. So, yeah, it's interesting that he's kind of broken out and is directing some of his own stuff. I didn't look at the credits for this, but is Luc actually on board, like as a producer or anything?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
I'm gonna have to look while you chat.
So a long way down. It's gonna hit the UK theaters March 21st, 2014. So coming up. I don't see a release date for the US. So US listeners will all just have to wait.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be summerish, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to it. Sometimes I like feeling good about these things, these little suicide movies. It's a feel-good suicide movie.
Well, and I love Nick Hornby's stuff, so I am quite excited for this one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Did you find out if Luke is involved?
I don't see him credited, so maybe he's uncredited, but I don't see him anywhere.
All right.
I don't see him.
Let's talk about your trailer.
Yes, I'm pretty excited about this one. This is Terry Gilliam's new film, The Zero Theorem, which looks like it's definitely going back to the Brazil and 12 Monkeys look of his films. It's got this very kind of wacky future neon pastel-y sort of world with Christoph Waltz playing, I don't even know how you say his name, Cohen Leth. The trailer keeps saying we. I don't know if he goes by we, but it looks like this really interesting story about this guy who's basically a hacker, and he's trying to discover why we're here. And much like, Brazil, there's this kind of corporate culture in this world that kind of is stopping him from doing it and interrupting him. And he's, I don't know, it just looks very trippy. And then, of course, this corporate group send in this little teenage girl to kind of distract him and everything. And she's wearing this bright fluorescent pink wig. And I don't know. I don't even know what to make of it. It's just, it looks so Gilliam-esque that I am very excited about it.
Oh, man. I was giddy when I saw this trailer.
Yeah.
It's like this. It is Brazil 2.
It has both the feel of Brazil and also some of that funky future world of 12 Monkeys, where you've got kind of, there's, I don't know, just something about the cords dragging behind people, and there's kind of some of that weirdness that was going on in that film. So it looks like a really fascinating, fantastical sci-fi film that also looks to have some kind of heady theoretical look at, the meaning of life.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what comes of it. The guy who wrote this is Pat Rushin, who is a creative writing teacher at the University of Central Florida. And I think he's written short books and stuff, and so I don't know if this was birthed from one of his short stories or what. But it's interesting. This is actually his only screenplay credit, so I am quite curious to hear kind of the story behind this one.
Wow, me too. I can't wait for this film. I love it.
I love me some Gilliam, and
some Gilliam.
Anyone who has looked at our list knows that we are going to be talking some Gilliam later in the year.
Wait, did you say when this is coming out? When is this hitting?
I'm looking right now. I don't see any U.S. release dates. It's been running the festival circuit through the end of the year, and right now it has a UK release date of March 14th, but I don't see any U.S. release date yet.
Okay.
I guess at this point we'll just say coming soon. Coming
soon. I'm hopeful that we can roll this into a film board. I would love to do a film board on this.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
All right. So tell the story a little bit about this week's movie, will you?
This week's movie came from our first of our listeners' choice selections. We did a drawing. We put everyone's name in the hat who had submitted comments and liked us and all that sort of stuff, and we ended up drawing our wonderful listener Stephen Smart, who picked for us tonight's film, Wong Kar-Wai's luscious film, In the Mood for Love.
We had a chance to talk to Stephen from the UK it was just a couple of days ago. It was last week. And we got to get some thoughts from Stephen on why he thought that this was an important movie that we should talk about. Now, he had written us a couple of months ago and said that we definitely, this was during our foreign film series, our last foreign film series, and he said, you gotta take a look at these Wong Kar-Wai films, and because they're great, and they've surprised me. And so I know that you and I had both added them to our lists, but we hadn't watched them yet. So when we drew his name, it was not a surprise that he would pick this film right away. And so we had a chance to talk to Stephen from the UK, and here are his thoughts on why he thought we should talk about In the Mood for Love. We are so excited to welcome our very first. I can't believe it's our first time we've done this, Andy. You should carry a lot of shame, as I do, for this. Our very first listener's choice, where we have asked from the good people who listen to recommend films that you think are important that we haven't talked about yet, and it was many moons ago that we were recommended this series of films by the good and kind Stephen Smart. Stephen, welcome to the Next Reel.
Thank you very much.
We're so glad to have you here. Can you, first of all, before we talk specifically about the films, tell us a little bit about the kinds of movies that you like and inspire you. What do you look for when you catalog kind of your favorite films?
When I was younger, I used to watch a lot of the kind of older movies. When I was a kid, we had 3 television channels: BBC One, BBC Two, and STV, which was Scottish television. And BBC Two used to always kind of show old kind of black and white movies or older movies, kind of stuff from the 40s and early 50s. So I kind of grew up watching Cary Grant, James Stewart, Humphrey Bogart, Danny Kaye. Yeah, so I used to kind of watch a lot of those films, the old Basil Rathbone kind of Sherlock Holmes movies. I used to love those kind of films, those kind of dark, atmospheric kind of thrillers. And that's the kind of movies I used to watch when I was a kid. I never really got to go to the cinema too much when I was a kid. I mean, we got taken to see Superman the movie and, the kind of big blockbusters that were out at the time, but we never really went, very often. So most of my kind of growing up watching movies was the older kind of stuff, the kind of Hitchcock, and I loved the Cary Grant kind of screwball comedies and things like that. His Girl Friday and Bringing Up Baby and all that kind of stuff.
Sounds like a great childhood education in cinema.
BBC Two used to be really good for that. I don't think TV channels show those kind of things anymore. maybe because they're not widescreen or because they're black and white, or I don't know. But you just don't seem to see them anymore. But there's always, the way to see movies nowadays with streaming and all that. It's easier to kind of get a hold of those older films. For some reason, I had a kind of fascination when I was a kid with the kind of Far East, and one of my favourite films was Shanghai Express with Marlene Dietrich.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just loved that kind of other worldliness to it and kind of mystery.
That gets us to your choice. Now, you had written to us on Facebook and recommended that we check out these 3 films from Wong Kar-Wai. And the film that you recommended is In the Mood for Love. This is from the year 2000. Now, my question for you, you had just watched, I think you had watched all 3 of these in this sort of unofficial trilogy, right? The first one was Days of Being Wild from 1991, then comes In the Mood for Love, and then the last part from 2004, 2046. Why did you pick In the Mood for Love?
Well, In the Mood for Love was the first one that I saw. And at that time, I didn't know about the other films. I hadn't seen any other Wong Kar-Wai film movies. So I hadn't heard of them. So I completely missed all of that in 2000. And it was really just last year that I came across it. It was in a book, 1001 Movies to See Before You Die. I came across that when I was just dipping into that book. And it just happened to be streaming on... We have a service here called Love Film, which is, I guess, it's kind of similar to your Netflix.
Right.
So it was streaming on there, so I watched it and just was bowled over. And then obviously I found out about the other films. I watched 2046 and then Days of Being Wild. But I think for me, and one of the reasons I picked In the Mood for Love is I think it's probably his most accessible out of those three films.
It is unofficial, though, right? Is there a direct tie-in between the 3? Should we be watching all 3 in order to talk effectively about the second one?
No, I mean what it is that some of the characters kind of drift in and out of the stories in the other films, and there's a bit of a theme in 2046 to do with whispering into a tree. Like there's like a hole or something, a knot in a tree where you whisper a secret into the tree and then you cover it up. And that's kind of in the Mood for Love that comes up. And it's also referenced a couple of times in 2046. But I think Days of Being Wild, you don't have to see that. I think if you see In the Mood for Love, I think I would find it hard to watch 2046 not having seen In the Mood. So
yeah, I think I made that mistake. I went and saw 2046 without realizing that it was anything part of these films that he had been putting together, and I walked out of it thinking it was a really amazing film, but not really understanding what it was that I had just seen. So I'm curious to watch In the Mood for Love and then kind of go back and see 2046 again so that I can see how all those puzzle pieces fit together.
I think it kind of helps explain Tony Leung's character, Mr. Chow, a bit more. I think in 2046 he's quite a different person. Mm-hmm. And I think when you watch In the Mood for Love, you'll kind of see why he's the way he is in 2046.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say they wish they hadn't seen 2046. They wish they had just stopped at the end of In the Mood.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it is a trippy film. It was pretty. It definitely seemed a little out there comparatively. I mean, kind of the futuristic trains driving around and everything.
I think, yeah, in watching some of the other Wong Kar-Wai films, the style was so all over the place and wild and frenetic, whereas In the Mood is a much kind of quieter kind of film, and the camera kind of stays still more, and I think it's just kind of easier to... I think that's why I think it's more accessible, I think.
Yeah.
Any particular performances? You've already mentioned Tony Leung. Any other performances that you find are worthy of note, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, really, for me, is the 2 central characters is Tony Leung's Mr. Chow and Maggie Cheung as Mrs. Chan. Mm-hmm. Really, the film is really about revolves around them, and they're just surrounded by all these other kind of crazy, kind of their mahjong loving kind of neighbours, and everything's on top of them, and but it's all just about those two people kind of trapped in this kind of crowded kind of apartment and city, I guess. And I just love the kind of you just kind of the scenes of them moving through corridors and moving through rooms and kind of just glancing at each other, meanwhile kind of surrounded by all this kind of chaos. But it's really those two kind of hold it together, and it's very kind of understated, their performances. So.
Well, it is a great recommendation, and I know this has been on our lists collectively since you first mentioned it, and so I'm thrilled that you came back around and recommended it again. Give us an official excuse to dig into these films, and thank you deeply. Thank you for listening and participating. We love it every time we see Steam Robot in the forum. So thanks so much for joining us, Steve.
No, yeah, thank you,
Andy. I think we need to go watch this movie. What do you say?
I say, well, let's do it.
Let's do it. Here it is. In the Mood for Love. Wong Kar-Wai.
係我。如果有多張船飛，你會唔會同我一齊走啊？
Now, we had not seen the movie when we talked to Stephen, and now I assume that we both have watched it.
Here's open.
This was the second in what I've sort of been calling a spiritual trilogy. I mean, it was a trilogy. He calls it, I guess people in the know call it an informal trilogy. The first part being Days of Being Wild, released in 1991. The second is In the Mood for Love, from 2000, and the third, 2046, released in 2004. I know you've seen one of the other ones. I have only seen this one at this point.
I did also see 2046.
Okay. Directed, produced, and written by Wong Kar-Wai, starring Tony Leung, Maggie Cheung, and cinematography by Christopher Doyle and Mark Lee Ping Bin. I want to make sure we talk about that.
Absolutely.
Holy smokes. What did you think of this movie?
This was a very easy movie for me to fall in love with. There was something about just the sumptuousness of just everything. I mean, it was like dripping with just beauty from every shot. And, I think that I had always held off on this film because I have heard people talking about how it's a film where nothing happens. It's this glacial story of two people who... The story is this man and woman who are renting rooms in apartments next to each other, whose spouses they find out that their spouses are actually having an affair. They start up their own friendship that doesn't ever quite develop into an adulterous relationship. They just kind of, have this play acting sort of thing that kind of ties into what they think their spouses are doing. And there isn't a whole lot that happens in the film. But I think because I had heard that, I always thought it was going to be just a really boring film.
Did you think it was going to be another Yi?
Well, I love Yi, so I...
Oh, right, that was me.
You probably were hoping it wasn't going to be another Yi. I really didn't know what to expect. I thought it would be a lot of kind of stillness, I think, is what I was expecting. And while there are still moments between the characters, the movie I felt just breezed by. I mean, it's not that long, and it really just moves fast. And the camera work in the film is, it's almost like a dance is how I felt about the camera work. And I don't know, everything grabbed me. Even if there was a slow moment, there was always something that I could latch onto. And whether it was the looks on their faces, the smoke drifting in the air, the way the raindrops were falling, the way that the camera was moving from room to room, just anything. I always had something to latch onto. So this was a film that I kind of was transfixed by, and I really enjoyed it.
Yes. I absolutely agree with you. The movie is, I would say, rather than still, I find it elemental. That what we see here, that these two people are dealing with is and what I love so much about it, as they're dealing with it, they're practicing going through the emotions that they are dealing with, as they adjust to this realization that their spouses are not the infidelity of their spouses,
Right.
But it feels so much, like that same sort of lizard brain kind of purity that we got when we talked about Prisoners, right? Not the violent part, but just the part that we're tapping into the rawness of the emotion when we are confronted with an extremely complex and hurtful situation. And I feel like these two actors, Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung, who are exceptional in this film, find a way through these simple nods and looks on their faces and these just very gentle movements on camera to demonstrate for us what is ultimately a very hurtful story. And yet, by the time it ends, I feel completely refreshed and rewarded that, that in many ways they did not succumb to their baser instincts. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that is fair. I think there is something very interesting about the way that they play that relationship, and it's almost it's never really spelled out, this game that they're playing. Is it that they just kind of want to be mutual friends, sympathizing with each other? Is it kind of a form of therapy to get through the pain of dealing with their spouses in their relationship? Do they avoid having a physical affair because they are trying to not go to that place where their spouses went to, and they're trying to be better than that? Or is it that they're afraid to take that step because they know how hurt they are, but they each want to kind of take that step and create their own relationship, but they're afraid that the other person doesn't, and so they kind of keep themselves from doing that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's very it's obvious that they have developed feelings for one another, right?
Yeah.
But what I walk away with is this, and I had this very interesting conversation with my daughter, right? She's 11 years old. And she sat down sort of over my shoulder and watched the last 30 minutes of the film with me. And so we were just sort of talking through it. And, by the end, she's like, why, they didn't end up together, but they didn't have, why, talk about the dynamics of that relationship. And I said, the feeling that I got was, wow, were they at some level aware? Or is this what Wong Kar-Wai is trying to sort of demonstrate to me, that these people, in spite of their feelings, were somehow at some level aware that their love for one another may have been, a Hollywood backlot, that it may have been a facade that was based on a foundation of vengeance. Right?
Right.
This foundation of infidelity. So in spite of the fact that they think they really are falling for one another, is that, are they falling for one another at the expense of more pure relationship? And I thought that was a very powerful message for me. It just rang right home to me.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to also to the fact that they don't want to stoop to that level.
Yeah.
That same level where their spouses went to. And yeah, I think that's it. There is some subconscious feeling of that. But I do think there is some sense of longing that they're also afraid to acknowledge with each other. And so I think at one point it's them trying to say, I'm not going to go there. But the other side is, I think they're saying, I want to go there, but I don't know if you do, and I maybe respect you too much to try because I don't want to hurt you, or I don't want to make it hurt even more.
Right. I agree with that, and you can see them push that. I think what's really elegant about the way the story comes together is they make these two people who are dealing with such pain essentially romantic heroes for me. You know, I mean, by the end of the film, I feel like they fulfill a heroic role. But you can see them pushing those boundaries, and I think this is, you know, these are elements that add to the drama in a very active way, not a passive way that you may kind of think from a movie that otherwise is very sort of still moving. When he leaves Hong Kong to go to Singapore, and they have the missed connection at the hotel where he says, you know, come with me, and he waits, but and then leaves. He gives up. He leaves, and then she's running to the apartment only to you know, get there, and he's gone. Mm-hmm. You see that there's this like, if only for a second. It's like it's a little bit like that sliding doors effect, right? It's just, if only for just a second. Yeah. They may have been pushed to a place where, you know, timing would have been on their side to actually have a you know, more powerful relationship.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and as a result, they were free to kind of experience the you know, longing even more, and I found myself just right with it.
There's well, and I think I have something I want to bring up with that, but I think the thing that also really set me up for that was right at the start of the film, they have, you know, the text that comes up on the screen says, "It is a restless moment. She has kept her head lowered to give him a chance to come closer, but he could not for lack of courage. She turns and walks away." Mm-hmm. You know, I think with that, it really helps kind of set the whole tone for what to expect. But I think it does go so much deeper than that. And I find these two characters so likable, so touching. Their story is so heartbreaking. And like you said, I feel such loss at the end when she's next door with her child, as we see at the end, and he's there, but he doesn't know she's there, and he kind of looks at the door, reminiscing about the days when they lived next door to each other, and then he leaves, and then next thing you see, he's in, I believe, one of the temples in Cambodia, and he's kind of whispering into the hole in the wall and sealing up his secrets, and it's so heartbreaking, but it's also incredibly touching, and in a way, I found it cathartic at the end.
Do you have the final passage at the end, like the other end of the sandwich? What was the final passage on the screen at the end? Do you have that in front?
There was two fairly short. One was, "That era has passed. Nothing that belonged to it exists anymore." And then at the very end, "He remembers those vanished years, as though looking through a dusty window pane. The past is something he could see but not touch, and everything he sees is blurred and indistinct."
The bit at Angkor Wat in Cambodia plays. It's a punchline to a conversation that Chow had with was it his boss, Mr. Ho? Who was he sitting there having lunch with? I got some of the faces confused.
Was it? I think it was Ah Ping, right?
Oh, right. Okay. So he's sitting there having his dumplings, and they have this conversation about how when they're secrets that they have to keep close to their heart, that in order to get it out without betraying some faith, they dig a hole in a tree or in a wall, and then they whisper their secret into the hole, and then cover it with mud and grass and seal it forever, right? And that's their symbol. And that's what we see at the end. He goes to Cambodia, and we don't know if he's there specifically for this sort of rite of passage, but we do see him whispering into the hole, and he walks out, though, with a sense of, like, you get this feeling of, or at least I do, this feeling of confidence, right? And that's what I love so much about the way the film ends, that he walks out with a physical confidence. He walks out with what I am led to believe is a sort of spiritual confidence, right? A new faith that he has kept his soul clean, right? He's kept his faith, and in spite of this time that has now passed, right? And you get a sense that everyone in this has moved on, and to me, moved on stronger than they were, at their low. The film really celebrates the low.
Well, and I think for me, the thing that really helps seal that is right at the end. Then you cut to that hole after he's walked away, and you see something growing out of it. You see grass. You see new life kind of springing forth from that. And to me, it was just it was almost like the circle of life. And it was like he was able to move past that, and now life has come from that. It wasn't necessarily the life that he wanted it to be with her, but it was like new life had been born. And I don't know, there's something really rewarding about that, I thought.
Well, there is, and that shot, I mean, that sequence, the Angkor Wat sequence in general, I think is a beautiful contrast to the rest of the film, right? The rest of the film is I would characterize it as compressed and friction, and you really feel like you are, you're in the film because there's no other place for you to be. Like you can't just watch it. You have to be a part of it because all the spaces are so constrained. And the Angkor Wat segment, the last couple of minutes of the film, it is absolutely expansive. And we get this feeling of size and space as we get this really luxurious kind of tour through this monument. Right before we go into these strangely positioned close-ups where you don't actually see initially that he is whispering into the wall. You just see sort of the side of his head, and the rest of his face is kind of obscured by wall. And only as we cut around to the other side of him do we see kind of what he was doing. And those are very close. It's very close shots on him, very tight shots on him. But the rest of that sequence is it's like breathing again after spending time, really intimate time with these people in their room, in these little hallways, these overcrowded spaces. It's a very special.
And to that, the description there, something else about the way that the film is constructed is, in the shots, there is often a sense of voyeurism, I felt, where the way that the shot is constructed, you have something between you and the couple as we're watching them. And not like, a little bit of a plant or something, but it's something a little stranger, almost like we are hiding behind a wall, peeking around the corner watching them, or we're sticking our head up and kind of observing them from, somewhere where we've kind of got an overhang. And it gives us this sense through the whole film of this voyeuristic sense of people watching, and this observational approach to the way that the characters are viewed, even to the point of seeing that in Angkor Wat, where we do cut to one of the wider shots where we do see one of the monks there kind of observing him as he is whispering into the wall. And I found something about that observational approach tied in with the other. It's interesting that there were two cinematographers, because I do feel like there's a little bit of a balance between these. It's almost like a yin-yang. You've got this kind of voyeuristic, wider shots of these things, but then you also have these much closer shots that are much more like an intimate dance between the characters. And so it's almost looking at the story from their perspective and the world's perspective watching them. And there's something about those last moments of him when he's doing that, where we don't necessarily know what it is he's doing right away, where we are trying to find out, and how that observational look kind of moves to a position where we finally get the reveal to see what's happening. And I don't know what the purpose of that was in Wong Kar-Wai's mind as to why he chose to set it up that way. But again, I think that goes to giving us a sense of that reward of that ending, the way that it slowly is revealed to us what's happening, and how it does tie back to that moment earlier on in the film where he's talking to his friend about it.
Yeah, I would take it. I had the exact same thought about this just generally having my view of their world obscured and feeling like I'm a voyeur. The same, I think, by extension, the same. I get the same feeling with their treatment of bodies, right? I mean, it wasn't just that there are walls or things in the way, but the way the camera looks at the people in the film, I found really striking and jarring at the beginning. Like I wondered, do they really know what they're shooting? Because much of the film is spent looking at backs and sides of heads and lots of body sides, but torsos where the head and neck are cut off, and where we'll see people sitting kind of sideways off the edge of a bed, and you'll focus on a knee or a leg or a foot, and we'll be hearing story going on. We'll be hearing. We hear the story progressing as we're looking at this really sort of disjointed view of this treatment of our actors, and I found that once I sort of got into the rhythm of it, it again became part of my experience of being in the room with these people. Because that's how it felt very much like how my eyes work, I mean, my eyes sometimes focus on backs and legs and feet and necks, and that's just how you look. And it's, rarely do we look in a Steadicam fashion.
There was something about that struck me as well, and it reminds me of, when I have a friend who's got an amazing wedding photographer, and the wedding photographer is not just capturing pictures of the bride and groom and their happy day, but also all of those little moments of the way that somebody's holding something or somebody's back in a chair. Those are the moments that, like you said, that's what you see. Those are the things that a person looks at. And for whatever reason, sometimes those are the images that are more indelibly implanted in your head than one of the bigger moments. And the fact that he chose to linger on those moments really, I think, for me, emphasized this more of an emotional journey in the mind of these two people rather than a straightforward story. I mean, if this was a straightforward story, just looking at these two characters all from the outside, I think it would have felt much slower. The way that he chose to do this, where it is looking at those more intimate details and the way that somebody moves, or the looking at the back of someone just as you kind of get, a head turned slightly. Those are the things that you read in, and you get emotions out of all of those. And there's something going back to the camera work. There's something about this dance in the camera work and how those moves tie into that. And something that struck me when I was watching this is how many times he crossed the line. And this is something we've talked about on past episodes, but
right.
when you're making a film, typically, in order to kind of keep the geography of a scene making sense, once you get your first shot between your two characters, draw an imaginary line between those two characters, and your camera, now that you've started filming, can't cross that line, because what happens if you do is one character who's talking to, like if a character on the left side of the screen is looking right, talking to a character on the right, you want to stay on that side of the line, so when you cut to the other character, now that character is looking to the character on the left. And it just feels natural. When you cross the line, the character one looking to the right, then you cut across the line to character two, they're also looking to the right. And all of a sudden the geography doesn't make sense in your head. Wong Kar-Wai does that frequently in this film. And I was like, what is he doing? This is so strange. It's so Baz Luhrmann of him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't understand why he's doing this, because so much of the other camera work had this amazing dance to it. And then the more I watched it, I really started feeling like that was actually a part of this dance. And in a way, and I don't know what he was thinking internally, why he chose to do that, but it really started feeling like, to me, almost saying that these two people are the same character. it's like two different sides of the same character. And yes, it's a conversation between two people, but it almost doesn't matter which one is which.
There's a visual joke that plays out in there too, and that I love very much. And it starts with him destroying the rule of thirds, right? I mean, he typically if we're going to frame a tight headshot of somebody talking to another character, and it's just a straight up 90-degree headshot, we put the character with their faces, so there's leading sort of space in front of their nose to the leading edge of the frame, right? And so there'll be if there's a character facing to sort of the left, there'll be more space frame left.
Right.
And their head will be to the right. He breaks that all the time and ends up putting faces where the actors are staring literally just out of the frame because their eyes are like right next to the edge of the frame. And he does these like slam pans into the frame where he'll just throw you into the frame sideways and then cut to throwing you onto the plate of food that they're eating. And there's this beautifully elegant shot where they're pretending to be their spouses as their spouses were getting to know one another at a meal and ordering what their spouse would order. Mm-hmm. And he ends up putting some like hot mustard on her plate so she can eat her meat with hot mustard, and she clearly doesn't like hot mustard, and that's a wonderful sort of dramatic play that about their relationship, that they are very different people in spite of their efforts to play like they are their spouses. But the visual joke there is it starts with all these slams and putting their heads on the wrong side of the frame. That's visually jarring. And then it plays again much later in the film as they are both in this state of longing, and they are on the opposite sides of each other, of the apartments that are next door to one another. Mm-hmm. And we're close on her. She's on the wrong side of the frame. And yet, as the camera slides now slowly, revealing as we're passing through the wall between apartments, we see that he is leaning up against the wall on the opposite side, and so they are longing through the wall against one another. And I think otherwise that would be sort of a trite. It would be sort of a trite visual play, right? Oh my gosh, they really like each other. They're on the opposite side of the wall, Maybe they'll pass a note or psychic energy. But because we've been introduced to the way the camera moves between these two people, I think it's just a continuation of a really wonderful visual story between the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
The earlier, I want to before I forget, this film really reminded me a lot of Remains of the Day.
Take me back.
The longing between the two characters in that film, while for different reasons, I found so reminiscent. I found this so reminiscent of that film because that came out, I believe, in 95. Or 94, or actually 93, I think. I'll just keep going backwards.
It was 93.
Yeah, 93. Yeah. It was a very another tale of two people who they had a connection, but in that case, because of the place in society where they were as two people working in two servants working in this British mansion back in the 40s, I believe. Actually, I think it kind of goes 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
They can't commit to that love, and it ends up being an utterly heartbreaking story as they both kind of feel like there's something there, but never can quite come to a place where they can do anything with it, or at least he can't. And kind of belittles her, and she ends up leaving, and she's heartbroken, and he ends up trapped in this horrible life that he's created for himself. In a way, this film, watching this, I instantly thought of that film, and so it was an interesting. Again, I haven't seen Days of Being Wild, so I don't know how that fits in. I think it's more of a character sort of trilogy, like some similar characters or similar actors traipsing through the three films. I don't know if it has anything thematically tying it all together, but I do feel Remains of the Day is, in a weird way, kind of a spiritual. I guess it would be the prequel to this one, or this is a spiritual sequel to that.
How does this fit with the That's a really interesting comparison. It makes me want to go watch Remains of the Day again. I think James Ivory in general is in good touch with the unrequited British love story.
Absolutely.
But how does I've been meaning to ask this because I haven't watched 2046 yet, and you have. How does this fit for you between those two films?
Well, I've got to say, I saw 2046, I guess it would be 10 years ago now when it came out. And I remember feeling kind of the same thing from this one, that like, wow, this is just a gorgeous film. At the time I was like, I don't really get what's going on in this film. It kind of goes from this same vibe of the, what is it, 40s, this film, the 40s, or is it 60s?
60s.
Yeah, 60s Hong Kong.
63 to 66.
Right, starts in 62.
62.
It has vibe of that 1962 Hong Kong. It also has this kind of futuristic world, and it was just this strange amalgam of a number of different things going on in that story that I never really could figure out what was going on, but I found it like watching a dream, and I really enjoyed what Wong Kar-Wai was doing that. I'm actually really curious to go back and watch it again now, having seen this, because the interesting thing about this film is this was not the film that Wong Kar-Wai actually set out to make. He actually started making a film that I can't remember what it was called, but it's something like, something
like
about
the 3 meals or something.
Something about food.
Yeah.
A story of food. He started making this film that was a very different film. And I guess he's a director who doesn't necessarily like to work with scripts, is what I was reading. And he has his actors, they kind of put the story together as they're going, and it ended up being a very improvisational story as he and Tony and Maggie kind of worked on coming up with a story, and the actors said it was inspiring but very demanding. And it just went on and on and on. It took 15 months to film this story. And as he was trying to find what the story was. And so he kind of went round and round and round. And in the process came up with the idea of 2046. And actually, some of the scenes in 2046 were some scenes and shots that he filmed for this film that didn't end up making it in that one. And so it becomes this strange blend of those two films, even though 2046 is kind of its own story. But that's actually why the first cinematographer had to step away. He had to go off, and Christopher Doyle left for a little while.
Are you okay?
I'm good.
Oh, that was the end of the sentence.
That was it. Yeah. And
I thought
Mark,
you.
Yeah, sorry. And then Mark came in to finish it.
Yeah. That was, as I understand it, that was the joke, that they thought that the movie would actually be finished in 2046, because it took so long to find. But his in Days of Being, or in the Mood for Love, his apartment was number 2046, his address.
Right.
So
it's not his apartment. It's the second one that he gets.
Yeah. Right. There's the hotel room.
The gorgeous hallway with the giant, with the red
velvet curtains. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, visually, lovely film. Really lovely. This is, I feel like, and I know we joke about it, but I feel like this is the level of sort of restraint in a slow-moving film that I can get around. I can wrap my head around, right? That sprawling sense of nothingness that came out of Yi. I feel like this movie capitalizes on a human relationship drama that had me absolutely bought in from the opening frame. I loved it. I loved these characters. I felt like I was a part of their relationship. But I want to specifically call out the production design, because and the costume design.
Absolutely.
I feel like this movie was made in 2000, right? I mean, obviously it took a long time to get made, but it's a movie that was in production in the late 90s and released in the year 2000, and it really captures for me the spirit of the 60s. It absolutely, I feel like it just nailed it.
Yeah, and interestingly, they couldn't even film in Hong Kong because it looks so different now. And I think they went and shot in was it Shanghai? They went to film
I thought
in
it was
because
Macau. Yeah.
yeah, I can't remember where it was, but they went to I think Beijing and Macau.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they started in Beijing, and then the Chinese government said, we want to see the script. And he said, never mind. And so they left to go to Macau.
We don't need no stinking script.
Oh, yes. But yeah, the production design and the costume design, I mean, they really do go hand in hand in this film. William Cheung did both of those, as well as the editing in the film. I have to say, I have never been in love with dresses more in my life than in this film. I mean, aside from the fact that Maggie is looks perfect in every one of these dresses, they're, I guess, Cheong San dresses is what they're called. Mm-hmm. Just these amazing form-fitting dresses, and every scene she's wearing a different one. According to the statistics, there were 46 different dresses that she wore in the making of this. Not all of them ended up in the final film, but that's how many different dresses she wore over the course of the film. And I just was in love with every one of them. She was just she was stunning in them.
Truly, truly. And he cuts a nice suit. I gotta say, Tony Leung is a handsome lad.
Yes, his suits were quite. He was a dapper lad.
He was dapper, and they spent a lot of time in the rain, and they all looked great in the rain. Apparently, there was some consternation around Maggie Cheung's hair, which was a 5-hour hairdo every day for 15 months. That's tough duty, but the result was fantastic.
Yes.
Generally, I mean, it's just atmospheric, absolutely gorgeous. This is a movie I think people need to see, particularly people who like love stories, because I think this is every bit a love story.
Oh, absolutely.
And it earns it. It absolutely earns it.
Yeah, it's unrequited, but at the same time, it does feel, you get to the ending, and it does feel like
I was refreshed.
Got something out of it, yeah.
I did not feel like I'd been kicked in the face.
No,
like some of these other films.
It felt cathartic. It really did.
Yeah. It was a release. Yeah. What do you have anything else hot on your list as we?
Let me look here. I think the title of the film. He actually had a different name for it, and leading all the way up to it played at the Cannes Film Festival in 2000, and he could never settle on the title, and he decided he was going to call it Secrets. And whoever it was who was heading the Cannes Film Festival that year called him up and said, "You can't call it Secrets. It's there's too many films called Secrets out there. It's not a good name for this, and you should change it." And it certainly was better than A Story of Food, but he just didn't know what to call it. And so he was listening to a Brian Ferry song and heard the song "I'm in the Mood for Love." And he's just like, oh, that actually could work really well for a title. And so hence In the Mood for Love.
This movie won a ton of awards, was nominated for a ton of awards.
The Hong Kong Film Awards in 2001. It
cleaned house. Right? Best actor, best actress, best art direction, best costume and makeup design, best film editing. You go, William Cheung. Mm-hmm. Nominated for best picture, best director, best supporting actress, best screenplay, best new performer, cinematography and original score. Michael Galasso. The score. It seems like all the score is that Yumeji's theme. That beautiful cello music that plays, it is so prevalent in this film. I swear, it's like every scene that pops up, you'll have a scene of them doing something, and then it cuts to a montage, and you'll hear Yumeji's theme playing over it, and it's gorgeous, gorgeous music. Don't get me wrong, but I was just like, wow, this is a really interesting use of score in a film like this, to have it this song so much. But it's a beautiful theme. It is it's again just really adds to that. It really adds to the '60s vibe, right? Classical '60s. It's gorgeous. This movie is on many lists of bests.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And bests around the world. I think we mentioned last week that this film is, or we mentioned in our conversation with Steven, this film is ranked number 42 in the Empire magazine 100 best films of world cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of films in the world.
This there are.
I'm just saying.
It is a big world.
Large.
Disney lied.
Get him. How do you did you find anything on dollars?
I didn't find a whole lot. I did find what it made. I didn't find anything as far as the budget. I'm guessing they spent a good amount of money considering they shot for 15 months in a very kind of stream of consciousness, abstract sort of filmmaking. But what they made here in the States was $2.7 million. And internationally, just over $11 million. So all told, they made just under $14 million. And, adjusted for today's dollars, that would be about $18.2 million. So, it made a decent amount of money for the type of film that it is.
Which is an awesome one.
It is an
awesome film.
One of the scenes that I loved, I think more than many of the others, was backtrack for a moment. Something I found very interesting is how you never see the faces of their spouses.
Oh,
they're always
yes.
shot in a way where you see like the side of them, or they're in the distance and you only see their back or something like that.
Right,
I found that really interesting. And then there's this scene partway through the film. I think it's pretty, like maybe 2/3, where she is confronting her husband and she's talking to him to try to drag out from him the fact that he is seeing another woman. He comes out and they have this back and forth. He comes out and says it. She slaps him, and then it's revealed that it's not her husband. We only think it is because we're seeing the character from the back.
Yeah.
And it's revealed that it's actually Tony, and they are play acting this whole confrontation, and he has her do it again. And the way that the emotions start coming out in that scene is so powerful. And even once it's revealed that it's him, when they go to take two and they start again, it cuts back to that shot behind him again, where we are looking at the spouse again. I was like, this is such a genius way to play that scene. And I was so just moved by the filmmaking finesse that Wong Kar-Wai had in his decision to construct it that way. And I just wanted to make sure that I got that out before we...
I'm really glad you bring that up, because I think that is, for me, that exact same feeling comes when they do their departure scene, because they do the same thing, and they talk about, this time who is who, right? There's no trick of the husband, but you see him say, walk away. They have this exchange, and she starts crying, and she's like scratching her arm a little bit in such pain, and then it turns out it was a practice run, and it is such a powerful gimmick, and I think you're absolutely right. It just shows a lot of finesse.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's Nat King Cole singing Spanish.
Singing Spanish.
I loved it. Great choice, Steve.
Great choice. Let's rank it.
Let's do it.
If you head over to flickchart.com, you will see, flickchart.com/thenextreel, you will see our stack rankings of our favorite films, and you can jump right to it from the next reel. You can jump straight to our top 100. That's the golden ticket list. You can see our top 100 films, and we'll see if In the Mood for Love is going to crack the top 100.
Well, let's see. In the Mood for Love or The Bourne Supremacy?
In the Mood for Love.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like The Bourne Supremacy is what I would pick, and maybe that's just because it's just such an easy, fun watch. But I do feel like there's a lot more to In the Mood for Love. So I'll say In the Mood for Love as well. In the Mood for Love or Fargo?
Wow.
That's getting harder.
Yeah, that got hard fast. I'm going to say Fargo.
I am too. I'm going to say Fargo. In the Mood for Love or Drive? Interesting. They both have very interesting
visual styles.
Cinematic. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to say In the Mood for Love on this one.
I feel like I'm going to go with Drive. And maybe it's just because of the car chases and beatings.
Wow.
It's a tricky one. I just feel like Drive is the one that I would put in.
Yeah, I'm going back through in my my mental playback of Drive, and I there are some incredibly strong sequences. I'm obviously high on In the Mood for Love right now. But that Ryan Gosling does do a bang up job.
Yeah.
And that elevator scene is pretty tense.
The elevator scene, and let's not forget the
Albert Brooks.
Albert Brooks, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll give you Drive.
Right,
it was a gut reaction. I'm going to give you Drive.
I hear you. In the Mood for Love or The Curious Case of Benjamin Button? Speaking of buttons,
yeah, right. I'm going to go Curious Case of Benjamin Button on this one.
I think I am too. Yeah. In the Mood for Love or Field of Dreams?
In the Mood for Love.
Oh, this is a hard one for me.
It's not hard
Field
for
of
me.
Dreams breaks me in the best of ways. But In the Mood for Love is filmmaking prowess. Field of Dreams, the filmmaking, I think is a little underwhelming. I think the story in that is what makes that film so powerful. But I'm going to give In the Mood for Love a leg up on this one just because it's so easy to fall in love with. In the Mood for Love or The Descent? There really? Is the pairing of the year.
Oh, man. I'm going to go In the Mood for Love. I love The Descent. I deeply love The Descent. It's a fantastic film. But I think the straight up, just the performances in The Mood for Love, the raw sort of, you just strip back just the acting. I found myself more engaged with each individual performance in The Mood for Love than The Descent. I loved a lot about The Descent, and I think it comes together really wonderfully. But I found a deeper connection with each of these characters, particularly in Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung, in The Mood for Love.
I'm going to go with In the Mood for Love, but I feel like
but it hurts.
That could change down the road. I think you're right. I mean, I think I'm still in the honeymoon phase right now.
Yeah.
But The Descent, I mean, I think there's a lot about what they do with her character and takes a step up in the horror film, the way that they develop that character. I like that a lot. All right. In the Mood for Love or Adaptation?
I'm actually interested to hear where you go on this one.
I'm really torn on this one because Adaptation, there's something about that script and there's something about the way that it's constructed with the twins and just the whole, everything ties together. It's like an emotional choice or just a downright amazing
You
script.
Use the word finesse. Mm-hmm. There's no finesse for me in Adaptation. It comes unhinged in a very good way for me. I mean, in a good way. I enjoy it. I quite enjoy it. But I don't know necessarily that's not like an argument for or against one of the films. But I just, in terms of the filmmaking, there's Wong Kar-Wai operating generally without a script, coming up with the film that they came up with versus Adaptation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
a story about a film without a story.
I will go with In the Mood for Love, but I'm feeling dirty.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah. All right. Okay, there we are. 52 out of 117.
Nice.
Zipped right up there, that little movie did.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
Excellent.
I just want to, my final thoughts on this. I just want to say, hooray for you, me, and Steve Smart.
Yes, hooray indeed.
This could have been a disaster. It could have been a righteous disaster, right? Because I know there are people out there who are waiting to punk us. I know some of them personally that are just waiting to get their name drawn so that they can punk us with something. But this, we have in the good and kind Steve Smart, a guy who loves movies and has a great eye for great films. And I deeply appreciate him taking this conversation seriously and participating in it. That's my thought.
Wonderful.
I love this film. I love how we got to this film. I can't wait for our next Listener's Choice series. Now, this has been great fun. And
the next one's not too far off. It's going to be toward the end of April. So everybody tuning in, make sure you are leaving us comments on Facebook, reviews on iTunes, just wherever you can find a way to send us a message, even emails, Google
tweets.
Plus, tweets. Yeah, we'll put everybody in the hat for the next Listener's Choice, which we're going to be drawing, I think, toward the beginning of April, and then we'll talk about it toward the end of April.
Perfect. What are we doing next week?
We are starting it's not a new series. We're jumping back to our original sci-fi series. Quite looking forward to this. We're going to be starting with just one of my all-time favorites, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
It's awesome.
I can't wait.
I sort of can't believe we haven't talked about this film yet.
I
know there are a lot of
last
movies.
Time.
I know.
Yeah.
How did this not come up?
I don't know.
All right. Close Encounters next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Nextreel.com. People are fantastic. I got to go to bed.
People are fantastic.
Welcome to the next reel. I'm so glad you could be here.
Hello. What a wonderful word. Hello.
I don't know that bit.
Oh, it's from Crazy People.
Oh, wait, Crazy People. Was that with the short guy?
Yeah, Dudley Moore.
Who fell down the hill in that other movie?
Wasn't that 10?
She was in that movie with that guy who had that heart attack.
Are you talking about Tommy Boy?
Yes.
I've never seen Tommy Boy. I've seen Tommy Boy. And I would say it's on my list of shame, but I don't feel any shame.
Oh, God. You haven't seen Tommy Boy?
Never have seen it. Never been interested.
What?
I know. I just have never been interested in it.
You see all kinds of crap. How did you not see that?
Oh.
Fat guy in a little coat? Who can forget that bit? Did I hear a niner in there? Another classic.
Oh.
Guarantee on the box? I could listen to that all day long.
And apparently you can quote it all day long, too.
Would you like to hear it? Here it goes.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor?
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.